Welcome to Let's Create, a whole series about taking game mechanics from existing games and trying to replicate them in Unreal Engine 4. We take a look at how they accomplish this, and we try and replicate it by ourselves using blueprints inside the engine. This week we're taking a look at Apex Legends and their use of ziplines. A zipline allows the player to travel across the map at great speeds, and we're going to try and recreate that. Okay, so to get started on our ziplines from Apex Legends, we are going to first of all start off by making the actual zipline. So let's have a crack at doing that first and foremost. Now I'm going to go add new, and I'm going to go choose a blueprint class, and I'm going to choose an actor, and I'm going to call it a zipline, and open it up. So this is going to comprise of a few things. Okay, so first of all we're going to have a spline. Okay, so just add a component, a spline component. And if you don't know what a spline essentially is a line defined by points. Okay, and we'll leave that as spline there. And the next thing we're going to add is a arrow, because we want to make it obvious which way we're actually going along this spline to the editor. Not the gamer won't see the arrow component, it's just for design purposes. It makes it easier for us to dictate which direction the thing should be going. So for this I'm going to drag this and attach it to the root, so it's not attached to anything else. Nothing should be attached to anything else here. So I've got my spline, I've got my arrow. I'm just going to move my arrow above the spline a little bit. There we are. And the next thing we do is add a cable component. Now a cable component is just a visual thing which allows you to see a cable. Basically, it doesn't actually do anything in particular, but allows us to make cable looking things like a spline, like a zipline. So I'm going to drag and attach this to the spline, and that should be down there like so. Okay. And there's your cable. So as you can see, a cable is pretty obvious really what it does. On the right hand side, when you've got it selected, the details will tell you some various things. So you can choose its location, like so. I'm just going to set that back to default. Its length, so the higher it is, obviously the more it's going to droop. I can choose how many segments it has, so you can see how it breaks into multiple segments when it bends. I can actually increase this to get a more finer cable. Okay. But I'm just going to reset all those back to the defaults by clicking the yellow arrows. So here we are with our cable actor and our directional arrow. So let's get cracking and starting this thing off. So what I'm going to do is, my idea is to have the designer of the level be able to plop one of these down and change it in the level editor to however they like it. So for example, they could just drag it in, and they can then click on the spline and increase and show which way it's meant to go. Okay, now that's all well and good. However, I want the cable to go all the way to the end wherever I place the spline. Okay, so we need to work out a way to do that. Now the best way of doing that is with a construction script. Now on the editor here, on the zipline editor, we can go into the construction script graph, and this graph basically runs anytime something changes about the object, including in the editor. So it allows us to construct things inside the editor procedurally. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do first of all make the cable go to the end of this spline at all times. So I'm going to create a function for this, keep it nice and tidy, and I'm going to call it I don't know, arrange construct cable. We'll do construct cable. Construct cable. And on this construct cable, we need to tell the cable to change the location and its length and so forth based on our spline. So drag your cable component out into the graph, and we want to first of all set its location. So set its world location to be the same as the spline's first point's location. So drag your spline out, and I want to get location at spline point, and I want my spline point to be 0, so that's the very first spline point. Your coordinate space will be world, because this is set in world location, so I want to set the world location here, and return value into new location. So that will get us the starting point. The next thing to do is get the end point. So my cable here, I want to also set its end point. Now, when you click on a component, on the right hand side you see the details panel here. These are all the things you can actually call and change inside the graph as well. So all these are settings and nodes inside the editor. So I want to turn on attach end and change its end location. Okay, so here I'm going to go attach end, set attach end, and we'll make sure that's true. If you don't have that as true, it means the cable will just droop, and you don't want that to fall to the floor. You want it just to carry on straight to the end. And then we also want to set its end location. Set end location to be the end point of our spline. So this was the starting point with the 0, and the end point will be the spline component, and you're going to get location at spline point, but this time your point index would be 1. Still want to use world space, and you'll return value into there. If I click compile and go back to my construction script, I want to drag that function now onto my script here and hook it up. So now when I compile it and go into here, you can see the cable, oh hello, should change. Don't know why it's doing that. Back out here. Let's remove it and try it again. There we go. So we've got some issues here. Now, this may, sorry. My cable is a child. I want to make that not a child. And compile that again. And let's remove it. Put it in. Why is that doing that? Apologies, it wasn't world, so it's actually local. So get location at spline point, we actually want to set the end location to local. This end location variable is a local variable, so I should notice that. You can notice when it's local because the values are typically quite small, like 100, 0 and 0. They're quite they're relative to the current location of the actor. So I want to get the local space for this. Click compile, and there you go. That looks more like it. Click on the end point here, and I can drag it out, and you can see the cable goes between the two. Now, one issue with this is the actual length of the cable doesn't change, so you can see it getting stretched and stretched and stretched, which isn't too bad. But if you've got a texture on there, you can see it stretching the texture, which is not really what you want. Okay, so we need to change the length of the spline as well. So of the cable, sorry. So at the end of here, I'm going to go drag my cable back out again and go set length, set cable length, and the cable length I want to first of all make the size of my spline. So drag your spline out and again typing length and plug that into there, and you'll see it is now droopy, but you can see it doesn't stretch as much now. Okay, so there's our cable, but I want to make it a bit more taut than that, so let's actually make it a bit smaller there. So if I was to say, actually if I change the gravity scale to 0, does that do anything? Let's have a look. Yeah, there we go, that's what we want. So I changed the gravity scale of my cable on the zipline to 0, and that way it sticks to the line. Okay, like so. So there's our zipline, at least one half of it. There is another half we need to do, and that's the actual interaction part with it. Now, there are different ways of doing ziplines, and we're going to do it the way that Apex Legends does it. So
the bad way, the way that they don't do it, is you have like a collision box at the start and a collision box at the end, and when you enter the collision box and you push the button, you go along the zip line to the end. That's not the case in Apex Legends. Actually, if we looked at the footage carefully, you notice that you could actually jump into the middle of the zip line and still interact with it and go to the end. And you can even go back the other way if you need to, if you face the other way. So for that to work, we need a collision box actually to stretch the whole length of the spline. So to do that, we need to go back into our construction script and create another function. So we have the constructor cable. We're also going to add another component in the viewport here. We're going to go and add a collision capsule. Now the capsule, you can see, spawns there. And in the construction script here, we need to change its shape, size and location on our actor. So I'm going to create a new function for this, and we go construct collision. And the first thing we need to do is let's get the length of it. So the capsule, when we click on it, you can see we've got a capsule half height and a capsule radius, and these control the shape of the capsule. Okay, so you can see here half height is the thing that's going to be changing based on the length. But you also notice we need to also rotate it along the direction of the spline. So let's have a look at that. So we go construct collision, drag your capsule out, and from here we are going to set the half height as a value. Now the value we want to get is the half height is the half length of the spline. So let's first of all get the length of the spline. So spline, we've done this before, you just drag off and get length. And then with that length we want to get the half height of it, so just divide it by 2. And this is now going to be our half height. And I'm just going to plonk that into there. In fact, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to store this as a local variable. So drag off your division, promote to local variable, like so. Because we're going to use it again in a moment as well. I'm going to name my local variable local underscore half length. That's the half length of spelled it wrong. Half length of our spline. So the local half length we can then drag into our half height. And for sake of testing, I'm going to turn this capsule and make it not hidden in game, so I can actually see it in the editor nice and clearly. So let's go into our construction script and drag that function in. So we can see here we've got the capsule going the correct length. Okay. The next trick is to position it. So let's position it first of all halfway along the line, because you can see we need to put it right in the middle. So back into our construct collision, you want to drag the capsule back out, set location, set world location, and you'll set the world location to be halfway along that line, the spline, sorry. So drag your spline out, and you want to get location at distance along spline, and that'll go into your new location there. Now the distance we want is actually going to be our local half length, because that is directly in the middle of our spline. But we're setting the world location here, so we need to therefore use the coordinate space of world. Compile that, go back to our game, and you can see now it is now in the middle of our spline. Pardon me. Okay, so now we need to rotate it so it is going the correct rotation along the spline. So to get it rotated around, we actually need to change its transform, because we might as well change its transform rather than doing bit by location and then rotation. We can just do a transform and combine it all into one. So rather than set world location, let's set the world transform. Okay, and plug that in. Right click on where it says new transform and split it. You can see the location, rotation and scale. Whilst we're here, we also want to change this to get transform at distance. No. Get transform at distance. There you go. And the distance will be the half length. The coordinate space will be world. And we're going to split the return value into those various parts. So let's drag the location into each other, and let's try rotation. Now you can see it hasn't rotated properly. Okay, it's rotated somewhat, be perpendicular to the spline. However, that's not what we want. What we actually want is it to add 90 degrees to its rotation. So what we need to do is actually disconnect the rotation here and split it. And we're going to drag the X into X and the Z into Z, but the Y we need to change by adding a float to it. We're going to add 90 degrees. Compile it, and you can see now the capsule goes the whole length of the spline, and that's it. So when you're adding, let me just delete that. When you're adding a zipline into your game, what you do is you drag it in, and the rotation of it has to match the directional arrow. Okay, so if I was to rotate this around like so, no, I rotated the wrong thing there. Rotate the spline point by accident. Okay, so rotate it around like so, and then with this one I can raise it up how I like. Okay, and you can see our zipline appears. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is sort out the interaction, and then we can put a pause there before we go on to the second part. So the interaction element, we're going to create a blueprint interface. So right click, blueprints, blueprint interface, and we're going to call this one interact interface, and open it up, and a new function is going to be called interaction. Now I've used interfaces plenty of times in my videos, so if you don't know what they are, they're essentially a collection of like-minded functions that you can share with other actors. Okay, so our zipline, for example, we want to assign it to this. So click on class settings up top, and on the right hand side you'll see interfaces. It says no interfaces currently added. So choose add and choose your interact interface and click compile. So now that it has that interface, we can then sort out the player's interaction itself. So I'm going to go into my first person character, and in here we're going to add some code to allow some interaction. So at the moment we just have this collision capsule. I also want to add a interaction capsule, so anything that enters in it, if it's in there and I push E to interact, it will interact with it. So let's make another capsule, and I want to make sure it's the same as this one. So this one's 96 by 55, and so capsule half height is 96 by 55 in the radius, and I'm just going to move it so it's just in front of the player, like so. Click compile, go back to the event graph, and I'm just going to rename that capsule we just added and we'll call it interaction capsule. And in its details, you want to make sure also that its collision is set to overlap all dynamic. Okay, we can even change it to something like trigger if we like to as well. So in here, with it selected, right click and type in begin overlap, and you'll see add on component begin overlap, and you'll see this event come up, and basically this will trigger when anything comes into that interaction capsule. If it does, I want to check whether or not it has an interaction interface. So other actor, we can go does implement interface and choose your interact interface. If that is true, we're going to put into a branch like so, and we're going to store that as a variable. So other actor will come out and promote to variable. So it's true, promote to variable, and the variable we're going to call interact actor. So now we've stored a reference to whatever actor we're trying to interact with, which is quite important because we want to know which one we are going to do something to when we push the E key. So that's when we begin the overlap. Let's do the E key interaction now. So I'm just going to do E key. That's so simple. And my interact actor, drag it out, choose get, and then from there, because it implements that interface, I can type in interaction, and you'll see interaction, and in brackets, message. And this is going to send a message to this actor to use the interaction interface. That's that part basically done. The next thing we need to do, or last thing we need to do here anyway, is make it so that when something leaves this capsule, we are clearing this value down here. Otherwise, we could be able to push E away from the object and still interact with it. So we need to just reset it. So again, click on the interaction capsule, type in end overlap, and here we're going to drag interact actor, get, and we'll check whether or not that other actor is equal to this interact actor we've currently got. So if we end the overlap with this interact actor, we're going to go into a branch and drag the interact actor back out, and choose set. And with set, when it's got nothing going into it, basically wipes this thing clean. Click compile, and that's it. We're done with the player. So this is a neat way of doing interactions if you want to do them. And the way we need to actually test this though, we need to put something on our zipline to see that it actually works. So I'm just going to go to my event graph of my zipline, and I'm just going to add the interaction event. Interaction event interaction. There we go. And I'm just going to do a print string for this to say hello. So we go into game. I can walk into my zipline, push E, and you can see it says hello. But I walk away, it doesn't. Okay, and we're pretty much done here for the first part. So we've managed to get up our zipline and set its appearance and how we create it, and we also set up the interactions. So the next thing to do is actually make it so when we push the E key, rather than saying hello, it actually zips us along the zipline. Thanks for watching. If you want to see the second part to this episode right now, head over to patreon.com/Ryan Laley, and you can donate just $1 and you can watch this video as well as many others alongside it. This has been Let's Create. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.